Ladies and gentlemen of the media, people of South Africa, the Protector team is grateful for your presence and continued interest in its work. We believe that with every news report on the activities of the Protector, somebody, somewhere, among the 54 million people in this country gets exposed to the work, role, and services of this important constitutional institution. Today is the day the Constitutional Court restored hope in the constitutional dream for every Gogo Dlamini out there who needs to rely on the Protector to hold government accountable for improper conduct that has wronged her or him. They now know that the Protector is not a gate to nowhere. Today is a historical day for all the people of South Africa and for this constitutional institution. It is historic because our Constitutional Court, the ultimate guardians of our Constitution, has confirmed the supremacy of the Constitution and the rule of law in this country. The court has made it clear that the Constitution and the law apply to everyone, irrespective of who and where they are. Today's judgment by the Constitutional Court confirms what was said by this very Constitutional Court during the certification judgment. Then the Constitutional Court said the following: the independence and impartiality of the Protector will be vital to ensuring effective, accountable, and responsive government. The office inherently entails investigation of sensitive and potentially embarrassing affairs of government. It is an expression of democratic maturity and the rule of law that government and parliamentarian majorities shall allow criticism voiced by independent institutions. As a consequence, an ombudsman diligently fulfilling his or her mandate shall not be subject to any form of physical, mental, or unjustified coercion. As the Chief Justice was reading the unanimous decision reached by him and his 10 colleagues, I recalled with pride the following words from the first President of democratic South Africa, Nelson Mandela, who said the following: "We live with the hope that as she battles to remake herself, South Africa will be a microcosm of the new world that is striving to be born. Let it never be said by future generations that indifference, cynicism, or selfishness made us fail to live up to the ideals of humanism which the Nobel Prize encapsulates." The Protector team hopes, with the uncertainty regarding the powers of this institution and its relationship with organs of state having been clarified, we can now proceed to work together meaningfully in a partnership for good governance. We thank the Constitutional Court for the groundbreaking decision. Our gratitude also goes to 1, the public for entrusting us with the matter that resulted in the Secure in Comfort Nkandla report and for supporting us throughout the process. We thank the media for bringing the excesses in the exercise of public power and control over state resources that resulted in the investigation and report to our attention. 3, we thank our lawyers, our attorneys, Adams and Adams, and specifically Mr. Andrew Molva and his team. Our counsel, Advocate Gilbert Marcus and Advocate Nkululi Stubbs, Thank you.
Thank you, Public Protector. Thank you, Public Protector. We've now come to the Q&A session. Please, by show of hands, we will take the first set of questions. I will start on the right-hand side. We will start with EMC and SABC. Yes, over to you.
Public Protector, it's Lena from ENC. I have about 3 questions for you. I mean, the Chief Justice really described your office as the David taking on the Goliath of corruption. You know, you made it clear that your role in your office is to uphold the Constitution. Now that the President has been found to have failed in doing that and violated the Constitution, do you then think that he is fit for his office or to lead the country? And then also the second question, you know, you're obviously coming to the end of your office in October, if I'm not mistaken. And finally, we have certainty about your powers. I mean, how does it make you feel so later into your term of office? And also, yes, there has been a decision that the Treasury will have to determine just how much money is going to be paid back. In your secure and comfort report, you did mention, I think it was a sum of like 10 million rand. Will you be, you know, I guess, helping in that process in terms of how much the President is going to pay? And do you still think that the amount that you did state in that report is still the amount that should be paid? Thank you.
Thank you. Public Protector Fanapete, SABC News. I'm interested in knowing, after your report, you were attacked by people like the current Deputy President, Nkandla. You were attacked by KB Mapazo, you were attacked by your learned colleague, Advocate Matole Mutseka. After that turn around by the President, throwing them into the Nile, have you received any response from them? And if so, what did they say, and what is your attitude towards all what they said about you? The second question is going to be, would you take us through the day you met the President when he made this turnaround that he's now willing to pay? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Public Protector. Barry Bateman, Eyewitness News. The Chief Justice Mogoeng is quite an orator, and he had some lovely quotes today. I think the one that stood out for me is, "Law is the sword which cuts off the ugly head of impunity." I trust you were probably listening quite closely to what the Chief Justice was saying. Is there anything that stood out in what he said?
The office has grown from strength to strength since opening its doors in 1995. Of course, it had to build itself from the ashes of institutions created during apartheid, the first being the Office of the Advocate General, then the next one being the Ombudsman. And then when it became the Public Protector, Advocate Barkwa fashioned it as an independent, fearless constitutional institution. Advocate Mushwana was the first person to create concrete remedies. We speak today about government being responsible for doing something concrete to fix the problem it has created through improper conduct, because Advocate Mushwana did that. We just came in, and of course when you stand on higher ground, because you stand on the shoulders of giants, you're bound to do better. I would like to believe that the next Public Protector also is going to do much better than what we've done. He or she will inherit the very same team that I've been working with. And it's the very same team that has been investigating all of these matters and emerging with the answers that I eventually owned and presented to the public as my decisions. So about this decision coming so late, Ms. Temba, it's better later than never. But there's no doubt in my mind that Nkandla people may see the Nkandla saga as a problem. As my team, we think it was a blessing because we needed a point at which we define clearly what does the Constitution mean when it says the public protector has the power to investigate, report on, and take appropriate remedial action in response to improper conduct in state affairs. It had never been done before. We've had countries right up to Germany coming to investigate what is this kind of body. We're thinking that even countries in Europe need to consider it. So then nothing like this had been done. Very few countries have something similar. I think Israel may have something that is comparable, and Pakistan and perhaps Uganda. I think it was a good thing that this happened. And will I help in determining how much the president needs to pay? We do expect that Treasury may consult us, but we're not really experts in quantity surveying. So I think they would need some expertise from quantity surveying. Most of us here are lawyers, so we can't offer much help in that regard. But the 10 million was not really the final figure. It was a figure in the early stages of the conversation around apportioning some of the costs to the president, and the task team had at that stage come up with an amount that was close to 10 million. I wouldn't decide that that's the decisive figure. I would really leave it to the Treasury. We trust them to do the right thing and to find the right people to assist in this regard. And Fanny Pete, SABC, yes, there are texts. Well, Miles Monroe told me that when people attack you unreasonably, you just have to understand that they know not what they're doing. And my own principle has always been, when they know better, they'll do better. And I honestly believe that now that the dust is behind us, we'll start acting reasonably. But it does say to me, though, that one of the lessons we've learned from this is those who exercise authority, be it public power or private power, must be careful about not surrounding themselves with praise singers. All of us, I'm in office myself. It's important for me that I have members of my team that are diverse in their views. Some, you call them the evangelists, the ones who immediately take what you say and they support. And then there are the skeptics. Then there are those who question everything. The idea is you need all of them because there may be things that you overlook. So I would say to those who exercise public power, don't reject those who disagree with you, because you might just head for a cliff if you surround yourself with people who are yes people. That's all I have to say on that side. And any calls? No, I haven't received any call from anyone who insulted me. And I must say that there is a certain deputy minister that it would be nice if I were to receive a call from. Because he made it his mission to find people who can disagree with him. And even he didn't care what the background of that person. I recall there was one professor from a very important institution, but he had never said a word about a public protector or an ombudsman before. And when this Nkandla matter came, he became an instant celebrity. You guys made him an instant celebrity and an instant expert on this matter. And all he was repeating was what a court in England had said about the English ombudsman. Yeah. But that was a joke, really. And I guess nobody owes me anything. This was just a joke. Because we're all professionals. We all can be right at times and we can be wrong at other times. I think for me the important thing, I'm sometimes wrong with my team here. The important thing is that when somebody comes up with an idea and they argue it meaningfully, I give myself the right to change my mind. And I hope that's the same lesson for people in government, is that you keep an open mind, and when somebody comes with an idea you've never entertained before, you receive it with an open mind, you digest it, and you allow yourself to change your mind if you must change your mind. And my meeting with the president, it's still due, Mr. Fanepete. It was a good meeting, honestly. It was a meeting of just human beings. I can't go to the details what we discussed because it was a private meeting, and we're not meeting with the hope that we will eventually discuss it here. But the sentiments that eventually were expressed at the Constitutional Court were the same by the president's team, were the same sentiments he expressed to me on that day. Right. And of course, from my side, I maintained what I have always said, that this office's decisions are binding, because clearly, when the Constitution says take appropriate remedial action, it means you can take whatever you consider appropriate in the circumstances, which is what the Chief Justice said this morning. If you may well make a recommendation if you want to, you may even negotiate with people, but once you make a determination of right and wrong and specify how it should be fixed, it becomes binding. So that was my side of the conversation. Mr. Barry Bateman, yes, I must say that the judgment is something that many of us lawyers will cherish for the rest of our lives. So there was partly listening to the Chief Justice as the public protector, but a part of me was listening to him as a person who's in the process of reclaiming my thesis in doing my master's in law, which I never finished, and just thought there's so much information there about constitutional democracy. Also, there's so much information about the modern state and the power of the executive in the modern state, and how clever we are, the drafters of our own constitution, in knowing that you do need different levels of democracy to keep the modern state in check, and the old levers, which is the executive, parliament, and the judiciary, are not adequate for the modern state. And yes, what stood out for me incidentally is the same one that you read. I just thought that was really marvelous, that the law is the sword that cuts the hand, that cuts the head of impunity. And then, well, he went on a little bit. The law is the sword that cuts the head of impunity. There was something. Yes, it was the ugly head of impunity, and then there was something that followed after. But I just think it was not just only the way the things he said, it was also how those things were said. That I could see in him a sense of believing in our democracy. And I must just say the last thing, Mr. Bateman, is I've had to speak to investors at the request of some of our institutions in London, here in the country. I've spoken in forums. I spoke to the UN Global Compactors businesses from all over the world. In Germany, I always said that our democracy is built to last. That when one part of the system fails, you can't say the entire system has failed. It was built with the understanding that there will be ways to compensate for failure in parts of the system. And today was that day when that was confirmed. Right. Thank you.
Sorry, what was the scene like here in the office?
Right. Well, perhaps they should tell you. Well, I think everyone sat glued to the TV, but what I noticed was that nobody wanted to speak. A needle could have dropped, except when some things we said, I could see people, doing that Nkandla, yes. And I think in one member of this office who, out of respect for his or her dignity, there was a moment where there was a tear shed. at some stage.
That wasn't you.
And no, it can't have been. No, it can't have been me. Do you think it was? No. For the fear of exposing the dignity of that person, he or she shall remain anonymous.
Thank you, Public Protector. We will take a second set of questions. I'll move to that side. I'll start with the first two hands that are raised in front. I can't see at the back. I assume there's no one at the back. We'll take the first two and then move to the third one on the right-hand side. Thank you.
I'm Protector Mareike from Jacaranda FM. Just to, my question's partially been asked, but as your term is set to end, do you have faith that the next person that is chosen to fill your very big shoes will be able to stand up to this role? Do you think they'll pick someone that will be as strong and as defiant as you have been, challenged as you have been? Do you think that there's a possibility that they might go for someone that's a little bit softer and maybe a bit easier to bully? And then also, just on a personal note, it's been, for many people, for some of the political parties, a good day today. The decision that was made was a good thing. Will you be celebrating a bit tonight?
Susan Comrie from City Press. Advocate Madonsela, as my colleagues have said, your term comes to an end in October. The decision of who to select next as the public protector now rests in the hands of the two parties who were most heavily criticised in today's judgment, Parliament and the President. Are you concerned that that they may use this as an opportunity to reassert their authority or some of the power that they feel they may have lost in today's judgment? And do you perhaps have a message for Parliament to try and prevent that from happening? And Advocate Malunga, if I could just ask, are you intending to throw your name into the ring for the for the selection of the next public protector?
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Simple Masumbuga for the Times newspaper. Advocate, the blatant disregard for your office and its powers, the second guessing of your report and the parallel processes to the second your report. We have also seen how the executive ignored the court order in the Olma al-Bashir matter. Do you honestly think the Constitutional Court judgment will make any difference? And what is your take on the argument that this plunged the nation into a constitutional crisis? The second question, you have done your work on the Nkandla matter diligently and stood your ground in the wake of the attacks. Out of interest, if you were to meet President Jacob Zuma today, what would you say to him? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's start with Marika. Thank you for that question. I am certain that we all make mistakes, and I want to believe that a mistake was made by the executive, by Parliament, and by many of the people who diverted attention from the issue of whether the conduct in question was proper or improper, and sought to play the person, which was myself, made mistakes. But I believe that everyone has had an opportunity to reflect, which is the same reason why the president, when I met with him, had a different message for me and for the nation. And that's why, okay, sorry, thank you. That's why a lot of the things that were said in court were also said by the executive, except the South African, the Minister of Police's representative. I think everyone has already had to reflect. So I have faith in the system, in believing that everyone has learned their lessons, There would be no point in government appointing a pub protector who will lead government towards a cliff. You might as well not have a pub protector. Because the whole idea of having a pub protector is to have somebody who will see your blind spots and quietly guide you to, thank you, to deal with your blind spots effectively. I always said to government, and I said it since the attack started, after those cases, those unfortunate cases which were called the SABC cases. Well, when the attack started, I indicated that to wish to have a public protector who tells you lies is to wish to have an enemy who calls himself or herself a friend. Because your friend is not going to tell you that you are headed for a lovely valley when you are headed for a cliff. They've got to tell you the truth. I was saying to the team, also lawyers have to make sure that when they tell government something, they don't tell government what government would like to hear. They tell government what government needs to hear. And so I don't think they will appoint somebody who will tell them what they would like to hear. I think they'll appoint somebody who will tell them what they need to hear. I believe also that person who comes in, whoever it is, whether it's the deputy or somebody else, that person would be a patriot who wants this democracy to get better in the next 20 years. We've had a bit of a rocky patch in the last year or so, and I think we all wish to get back to the energy we had around 1996 and move forward full steam to deliver the South African dream of an improved quality of life for every person and freed potential for every person as soon as possible. Will I be celebrating tonight? Well, Marika, I would celebrate if the NPA and the Hawks can, at least by tonight, send me a report that says they have stopped investigating me. You do know that I'm being investigated with the potential of being prosecuted for holding this view that my powers are binding. And we've had to deal with that. We were hoping we'd get a final answer, will I be prosecuted or not? But they put a very senior team from the Hawks, which is supposed to investigate organized crime, to investigate what I said in court. So it would be nice if this would trigger them, giving me a report that says I'm not a criminal, I'm a public protector. Right. A message to Parliament. Now, last time I had a media briefing here, you recall where I had a media briefing to advise Parliament about what was expected of Parliament in holding the executive to account, because Parliament refused to talk to me. I held a media briefing here, and then I read a statement. What followed was Parliament being very angry, or some people from Parliament being angry for me not sticking to my lane. So I'm going to stick to my lane this time. I'm not going to offend Parliament or anybody. TVP, you're going to answer for yourself. Mr. Sipoma Sambuga, blatant disregard for my office. I wouldn't say there's been blatant disregard for my office. I would say there was sophisticated disregard for my office. But I think that sophisticated disregard was also a blessing, because even the al-Bashir matter, it was terrible that it happened, but maybe I'm always looking at the glass half full. Because I'm saying if there was a defiance of the legal system, or there was a defiance of courts, a head of state would not sneak from another country like a little criminal. he would have been driven in broad daylight properly like a normal head of state. So there was an element there of respect in the minute it was done. It was wrong what happened, but I honestly think that these institutions thrive in this country because there is respect for the rule of law. And once the courts have spoken, this country since 1994, once the courts have spoken, the executive has acted. It may be tardy in some cases. That's why the courts now have come up with timelines. And we also do the same when we found that sometimes people be tardy in implementing the remedial agent and we put timelines. And I must indicate that after the SCA judgment, which we're grateful for, people started complying again, and within reasonable timelines. I mean, the latest that we got was a business person that had really been struggling, and after the SCA judgment, the doors were opened for a proper negotiations about the implementation of remedial action, and the organ of state involved began to take the appropriate measures. So I don't lose heart to say, I honestly think that the Parliament and the executive respect the Constitution, but it's not even about just respecting the Constitution, is that we love this country, all of us, and we know that the glue that binds us as a nation, our lodestar as a people, is the Constitution. Right. A message?
If you were to meet the president, what would you say?
I would say thank you for settling before the Constitutional Court made a decision. I thought that was courageous, that was magnanimous, and I think it really gave the president some ground. I think we would be speaking under much more devastating circumstances if today was the only time we were going to hear a message that say the president will pay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. PP, thanks for that address. It was fantastic. I represented the office today at the court, and I can't overemphasize how important this particular decision today is. As an affirmation for the rule of law, as the way in which we resolve things in South Africa. In other words, we don't resort to machetes and we don't resort to extrajudicial means to resolve disputes. So, and the point I'm making is the fact that this institution is the owner of this particular so-called victory or step forward, and all the people who are sitting here basically own what has happened today, and we should take that into consideration, that, as I've said, 50 years from now, when Africa Madonsela, myself, and everyone has gone, we should be able to look back with our walking sticks and say, we created that, and it still works. So it's important that these institutions are strong. President Mandela said this institution is the conscience of the state. And that was what was really seminal about Chief Justice Mokgwe's judgment. It was a beautiful judgment. The Constitutional Court reasserted good governance, basically. And Ms. Comrie, the question that you're asking me, I get asked that question every single day these days. Probably sometimes 3 times a day, by a security guard, by a cleaner somewhere, by an MD. I think it's because they're genuinely concerned about the future of this institution. As I said, I don't own this particular institution, and we have created an amazing machine here, which with the team, And I think what I have to correct up you, a lot of you media members get that wrong, to assume that the public protector is Madame sitting here and she sits with 40,000 files in her office. It doesn't work that way. It's an entire team doing its work effectively. The work is not a thumb suck. These are professionals. And I'm one of the individuals who has been second in command, so to speak, as part of that project. So I've learned a lot. I've had an apprenticeship over a period of about 4 years, and I've come to know a lot about this institution. And I certainly believe in the value system that good governance is not negotiable in South Africa, that we need to ensure that the state is accountable at all times, and so forth and so on. But it's not my decision. As I said, I get that approach every single day. And it's not about me ultimately at the end of the day. It is really about the country. You know, if there's a better candidate, if I can put it that way, I would gladly support that candidate. But if you have a situation where the institution has a situation where an unsuitable person then leaves the institution, I'll be the first to leave. And unfortunately, we can't have that. So the short and long of it all is that when that bridge comes, I will consider it. But as I said, I'm being approached every single day, and the most important thing is for us to ensure that this particular institution, the way it has been created, and the strengths and the confidence, public confidence that the public has, is maintained at all costs. That is guarded selfishly and jealously as we move along. So I don't think I can say more than that. It's beyond my powers. But as I said, I think we just hope ultimately that people will do the correct thing, regardless of who is selected to take over that particular role. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there a question? All right.
No.
Public Protector, you have spoken about lawyers who say what the government wants to hear. But you have also emphasized that there are lessons in all this debate. If approached by the Speaker of the National Assembly for some advice on the way forward, would you still apply your open door policy and be of assistance to build this dream that you're talking about? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panikete. I just want to check if we haven't left some people at the back there. Was it no last person wanted to ask a question? Right, okay, okay. I'm always available to advise anyone. In fact, that's more or less what I've done all my life. It was either I helped somebody to vindicate their rights with an institution, or had to advise somebody. I just wouldn't interfere, but if I'm requested to advise, it would be a pleasure. In fact, that's our role here, is that government, particularly Parliament, should request this institution for advice. And a sit down. I mean, that's why I was offering, it's not something you do at a media briefing. Ideally, is you have a cup of tea and you talk to the speaker, and then if she or he wants to take the matter to plenary or to other colleagues, then we can discuss it. I think I would be available, and any member of my team would be available to assist the speaker and any member of parliament. Incidentally, we were with the Gauteng government yesterday. You noticed I was invited by the Premier to come and talk about what needs to happen to promote good governance in state affairs, open democracy and integrity. And We bent over backwards. We're in the middle of something yesterday. I bent over backwards and I went to Benoni to offer my bit of what we expect and how will that contribute to effective and responsive service delivery, and I believe that it was appreciated. In the absence of any other question, I just also, is there one question? All right. Okay. Right. In the absence of any question, going forward for us, this is the start in our partnership for good governance with organ of states, particularly Parliament and the Executive. We have revised our strategic plan in anticipation of this judgment and in taking into account the already groundbreaking judgment that was made by the Supreme Court of Appeal, for which we are also grateful. One of the things we agreed to with my team is that the Public Protector Act must be changed speedily. And the Chief Justice, in a way, or in an obscure way, alluded to some of the gaps in the Act. In fact, there's no part of the Act that talks about remedial action because the Act predates the Constitution. And after the Constitution was passed, there was just an amendment, a cosmetic amendment to change the preamble to the Act and add the reference to the new Constitution. And on a case-by-case basis, one or two things were changed. It wasn't purified. If you look at the Auditor General Act, there was the old one before democracy, and then in 1996 or 2006, they overhauled the Act to align it with the Constitution and to align it with the realities of today. For example, everyone still calls us the Office of the Public Protector because that's what the Act says. Because we were an office of the Advocate General in the Department of Justice and an office of the Ombudsman in the Department of Justice. And when we keep being called, sometimes we also call ourselves the Office of the Public Protector. So we will be approaching Parliament and the Executive with a letter at the beginning of April requesting a law reform process to review the Public Protector Act, possibly by the South African Law Reform Commission. We know that there's another law that we recommended it should be changed that the Law Reform Commission is working on, and we're very grateful for that. The second conversation we would like to have with government is a conversation about proper conduct in state affairs. In reality, the debate became about what are the powers of the Public Protector. We don't think that was the real dispute between government and us. The real dispute was about what is proper and what is improper in terms of use of public power and public resources. It then became an issue of how do we solve the disagreement, and the argument focused on our powers. But you can imagine that if we agreed on what was proper and what is improper, the issue of our powers would never have been an issue, because we would have agreed on was it proper, what happened, was it improper. So we put in our strategic plan conversations with the Executive and Parliament around proper conduct in state affairs, because they make the rules, we enforce them, and we would like to firstly then strike a common understanding on the meaning of the rules before we step in to help with the enforcement. Thank you. The DPP would just like to say a word.
Thanks. Just while the Public Protector is talking about enforcement, we've got a list that we generate occasionally on implementation of our remedial action. And bolstered by the court decision, we will be dusting up that list and looking at it very seriously and checking who is complying and who is not. So I think this is something I haven't discussed with the Public Protector, but I think if maybe one thing we could possibly do is to release the list of the offenders to the media, to say who is not complying with remedial action, because that is very important, because service delivery is hampered and a lot of things go wrong as a result. A lot of public money is wasted and so forth. But we haven't discussed that. But now that we, as part of the victory parade, if I can put it that way, we certainly would want to see people implementing all the remedial action that has been issued. Ironically, you know, yesterday I got a call from someone who wants the remedial action issued under the former public protector, Advocate Mushwana. So these things don't go away. You know, so, but anyway, thanks, Vicky.
Thank you, DPP. Just to soften that a bit, if you look at the statement we've issued, we said we are looking at a partnership with government going forward. So although it will be about looking at implementation, we will not really be coming in like police. We'll be coming in again as the McCarthy, whispering truth to power and saying, let's fix this. The reason we do that is there's a notion in institutions such as us, which is administrative scrutiny institution. It's called case hardening. And when the relations are poisoned, the case hardens. So we might even issue a judgment or a report that is sound, but then somebody takes us on review, which is their right by law, according to what the Chief Justice said. But Gogo Dlamini doesn't eat whilst we're going on review. So what we would like to see is a common understanding of what's proper conduct in state affairs, so that those reviews, Advocate Fourie, how many reviews do we have at the moment? We have 18 reviews. That means Gogo Dlamini is sitting with no remedy. Those concrete remedies that the Chief Justice was speaking about this morning, at the moment they have a piece of paper that is saying they were wronged. And we will be appealing to government, especially in the light of the rise of the social justice movement, that we all have to work together to make sure that state institutions are functional, that state institutions really deliver on the constitutional dream. Because if there's a sense that those state institutions are decoys, this time we will not be ignored. But if everything we decide without good reason is taken on review, there will still be a delay, which would mean that people will still have to take things to the street. Nkandla, for example, was one example of what we call case hardening. But it was one of those cases, a phenomenon we'd never experienced before, which is systemic case hardening. I mean, the banking industry, they know about systemic effects. For us, Nkandla had a systemic effect. So going back is not going to be so much a legal route that we have to take. It's really a route where we have to meet with these stakeholders. I've already started meeting. I mean, I was grateful that Gauteng allowed me an opportunity to speak to everyone. And DPP and I will be splitting ourselves to go and speak to executive across the country. We would like a meeting with cabinet, we would like a meeting with parliament, which is an olive branch, really, saying we've all learned our lessons, as you said, sir. And can we put this behind